Based on a famously lurid 1946 potboiler by William Lindsay Gresham, previously adapted the following year into an infamously grim film noir downer commissioned by Tyrone Power specifically for the opportunity to dirty up his too-clean movie idol image, Nightmare Alley feels like material tailor-made for Guillermo del Toro, a con artist double-cross narrative with the added gimmick of the con involving the intersection of corrupt psychiatry, fraudulent fortune tellers, and the carnival freak show circuit. As it turns out, it might actually have been too tailor-made this time around. The storyline, neatly divided into two halves set in the mid-1930s amid the incoming build-up to World War II, follows Bradley Cooper as a ne'er-do-well grifter named Stanton Carlyle, who slips into the roustabout crew of a traveling circus carnival, fleeing an illicit act we won't learn the details of until much later, and quickly ingratiates himself as an odd jobs man, consummate barker, and suspiciously quick study, backup player, and relationship complication to an aging carny couple whose seemingly bulletproof scam, a fortune-telling act based on an elaborate code word system, he learns to mimic and even improve on. He also manages to make a more earnest love connection with the other lone, physically normal human among the freaks, meaning Rooney Mara as a stunt woman whose act involves appearing to survive electrocution. So an opportunity, or rather random, or perhaps not, cue for a change, genre-appropriate sound effect, strikes, leaving both of them with suddenly less reason to stick around at the circus. The two of them let out for the big city and a time skip to the story's second half, wherein Stanton has retooled the inherited fortune-telling scam into a slick nightclub mentalist act that has made both of them comfortably wealthy. But of course, this is a film noir, and he's an uneasy, class-unmoored criminal, social climber who's going to ruin it all by always wanting more, and his temptation arrives in the form of Cate Blanchett as an ice queen femme fatale psychiatrist who uses her profession and understanding of the human mind to extort and control the rich and powerful, so they're kind of in the same business by a different name. Get it? Who manipulates Stanton into joining her in a scheme to take advantage of an aging millionaire by staging a fake seance and pretending to summon the ghost of his dead deceased first love, which of course will require Stanton's morally upright wife's assistance, and also just happens to be the one type of spook show fake magic grift that their fortune teller mentors warned them against ever trying to pull off. So yeah, even if this weren't based on a 75-year-old book which they already made into a movie once before, no prizes if you already figured out which character is going to say, hey, that thing you're thinking of doing, don't do that, whether or not the other character does it anyway, whether or not they should have listened, and who ends up having been in control of the situation the whole time, that's not really the point here. This kind of thing is in repertory theater meets cover band territory. The point is to play the hits in a new but different way and watch to see if the players are investing the familiar beats with real humanity between the lines everybody already knows. And the answer is, this time, mostly. Don't get me wrong, Nightmare Alley is probably the best version of exactly this that anyone has made in a long time, both in the sense that no one has really been doing full, big, grown-up, noir-style period dramas, and also it's specifically a throwback less to the golden age of the genre itself than to the bizarre aesthetic revival it experienced in the early 1990s, when it seemed like every major studio movie with any kind of genre edge to it had to slather on a 40s Art Deco aesthetic as well because, well, basically because Tim Burton had just done it in Batman and had made more money than anyone had ever seen before, so they figured, hey, maybe that's some kind of magic potion. But if you like movies where, for a change, Willem Dafoe shows up and isn't the only person playing basically every scene in the key of, oh boy, this here is a motion picture, are you excited? I'm excited, while posing haughtily in old-timey dress-up on elaborate sets with really arch monolithic shapes, vaulted ceilings, and a lot more gold leaf in the decoration than you really see here nowadays, in contrast with dark doings and even more ominous music, this is definitely your jam, and it's definitely Del Toro's jam, which ends up being part of why it doesn't quite get to take off as much as it needs to. It's certainly well directed, the actors are all great, Blanchett especially has rarely been better in this sort of part than she is here, and Cooper plays an excellent slimeball protagonist, who'da thunk, and it's nicely paced, not too big, not too flashy, nasty little piece of work, but it's another of those times where the director's proudly owned affection for opulent artificiality in the horror genre and old school cinema ends up paradoxically producing a film that's gorgeous to look at while simultaneously undercutting what needed to be just a fraction more reality in its premise, in my opinion. So much of the story's second half is reliant on what's meant to be the inherent queasiness of how clearly phony and obvious the mechanics of the cruel and cynical trickery behind the fortune-telling and freak show sides of the carnival actually are, and even more so when they're made part of a tactile criminal conspiracy out in the main world. And it was hard to shake the notion that a filmmaker who wasn't so lovingly invested with making everything look like a meticulously art-designed walk-through theme park as opposed to an inhabitable space might have carried the effect off with a bit more edge given the same script once it eventually gets to the meat and potatoes of where it's going. Even still though, lesser Guillermo del Toro is still better than a lot of people's best. So give this an 8 out of 10 for the experience, and seriously people, don't let everything else in theaters go ignored just because you're excited for Spider-Man, okay?